The year is 2004, and Neon Genesis Evangelion has been over for 7 years now. 1996 saw the airing of its television finale, while 1997's End of Evangelion revised the ending for a feature-length conclusion. While it remained a cultural juggernaut far beyond that, this was the definitive ending, an unforgettable send-off that wrapped up the story and the characters. But saying goodbye is hard. So for the people that still hadn't let go, 2004 was a great year, because it gave them this. Evangelion Re-Take by Studio Kimagabuchi is a fan-made doujinshi, an unofficial series of manga meant to continue the story past its original ending. It began as Asuka and Shinji smut, but its story diverged into something much larger, and it grew immensely popular and even mainstream in the Eva community. Thankfully, an all-ages version was later released, which removed the X-rated content while retaining the graphic violence, which is great news for those of us who aren't If you haven't heard of it before, it's hard for me to properly state just how big Re-Take was, and still is. There's an ongoing fan effort to produce an animated adaptation of it, complete with voice acting. An adult video company even produced a live-action adaptation. And it exists. There are people out there who prefer Re-Take over any officially licensed sequel or spin-off. There are people out there who genuinely claim this is better than the real ending. I decided to read it myself, the all-ages version, to see what all the hype is about, and to find out if it holds up over 20 years later. Is this highly celebrated work of fanfiction really the definitive ending to the series? This is my take on Evangelion Re-Take. Following the events of the End of Evangelion, Shinji mysteriously finds himself back in the past, waking up in the nerve hospital with Rei by his side. She informs him that he's been unconscious for 3 days, after being absorbed by the 12th angel. That's right, he's back in episode 16, and everything that happened afterward was all a dream. Or was it? As events start occurring just as they did in his dream, he begins to treat it like a premonition, using his foreknowledge to decisively defeat the angels, while at the same time trying to improve his relationship with Asuka. They're actually getting along quite well now. Even so, he's haunted by a ghostly apparition of future Asuka, who seems intent on making Shinji mentally suffer. Ritsuko and Misato come to the conclusion that his mind has been corrupted by the angel encounter, giving Shinji a limited time left to live. I would be remiss if I didn't immediately mention how exceptional the art is here. It truly captures the vibe of the series and the intricacies of its many complex designs, while still having a style of its own, particularly with the character designs. It looks great. That being said, the story is another matter. There's some things that even an all-ages version can't scrub out, like Shinji and Asuka getting it on for a week straight. Asuka gets pregnant, yeah, you heard me, and then goes around inviting everyone to their wedding. Reading through all this, I was really questioning all the praise heaped upon Re-Take, and questioning my life choices in general. But wait, there's more, including what can only be described as the complete character assassination of Rei Ayanami. Because he witnessed her role in the third impact, Shinji has a difficult time facing her now. Her sync rate begins to collapse as she gets uncharacteristically jealous of Shinji's feelings for Asuka, even dumping a can of red paint on her head so she'd have Asuka's hair color. What? Later, Rei watches Shinji and Asuka getting it on from outside their window, and then Shinji walks in on her ending her own life. I can tell they prefer Asuka, but this is just vindictive and mean. Well, good thing we got a couple spare ones lying around, I guess. Skipping ahead to the ending, Asuka tells the replacement Rei to look after Shinji, then self-destructs in order to defeat an angel. Asuka is now dead, and so is her unborn child. Ooh, what a ride, huh? It's hard to imagine this is what everyone was saying transcended its hentai origins. I'll be totally honest, I was thinking about dropping this whole video because there isn't much to work with here, but thankfully the next 2 volumes have more interesting things to talk about. This one is easily the worst of the bunch. The second installment is a drastic improvement, in no small part due to the sharp decline of Shinji's mental state. Sorry kid, but your suffering makes great entertainment. Kaworu arrives, and because Shinji knows he's the final angel, he decides to take action before things escalate. You know that this will benefit nobody but yourself, right? In fact, I know. I'll throw everyone in the world into the pits of hell and meet Asuka again. I can't lie, that line goes hard. Without hesitation, Shinji takes a big bite out of him, leaving him as nothing but a bloody, mangled corpse. While in the show, killing Kaworu was an uncomfortably slow and painful choice, here it's instantaneous. And wrong, because in this timeline, Kaworu was not the last angel. Shinji just murdered a human. God damn, that's dark. This is easily my favorite part out of all of the volumes. It's so shockingly violent and takes advantage of the alternate timeline concept as a way to subvert the expectations of both Shinji and the reader. It turns out that the real last angel is Shinji himself. Future Asuka explains that after the third impact, his mind has been hijacking the bodies of different Shinjis across an infinite number of worlds he's created, a way for him to keep escaping confrontation. He desperately wants another shot to make things right with Asuka, yet he's running away from the real Asuka that he hurt. But now he's finally ready to accept responsibility. He apologizes to future Asuka and chooses to fight the invading mass-production Evas, even though a victory means he'll cease to exist, leaving behind this world and the people he cares for. Oh yeah, so this timeline's Asuka is actually still alive, by the way. Their unborn child was an angel that saved her at the last minute, and she's been locked up in Nerve this whole time, but her mind has essentially been broken. That death we saw before was a fake-out. It's actually the second Asuka fake-out they pull. Come on, law of diminishing returns. Toji starts clocking Rei to stop her from risking her life to help Shinji, but she's so steadfast in her resolve, she just powers through every punch and keeps walking. I gotta admit, as strange as this part was, it was a blast to read. Unit 00 bursts through the wall to get Rei, and she snipes the mass production Evas with the positron rifle, just in the nick of time. Now we're talking. Finally, Rei is given a chance to shine. It almost makes you forget what they did to her before. Almost. I think my biggest problem with the second volume is just how much exposition there is. It screeches to a halt to explain everything in exhaustive detail, which feels wrong for a series that thrives so much in ambiguity and connecting the dots yourself. Credit where it's due though, I found it thematically consistent with the themes of the main series. It has some pretty fun moments, and it's an enormous step up from Volume 1 in general. I knew I was going to get a physical copy of one of the volumes in order to make this video, and it was pretty clear after reading this that Volume 2 was the way to go. Honestly, seeing the art in person makes it feel like even more of an accomplishment. I had to skip over some of the battle scenes in my recap, but check out how damn good they look. It's an impressive attempt at capturing the essence of Evangelion, even if I can tell exactly where the sex scenes were cut out. Right here, it was definitely right here. But will the last volume end it with a bang or with a whimper? Let's find out. Future Asuka arrives on the battlefield to save Shinji, and to reiterate that he's crossing a point of no return. We witness the possible future that could await, a quiet, peaceful life where the two of them get married. But he chooses to give up that possibility, breaking the cycle of the infinite worlds he's created to escape. No more running away. The world that they leave behind, though, doesn't fade away. We follow the Shinji whose body the original Shinji hijacked try to reconnect with Asuka, who wakes up but is unable to remember the events that transpired throughout the manga. We follow them for a long time, to the extent that things start to feel overindulgent and convoluted. At one point, Shinji is running to stop Asuka from getting on a plane like a cheesy rom-com movie, and Rei literally picks up the car in Unit 00 and brings him there. Alright, maybe that's a little fun. Nevertheless, Asuka flies away anyway, and oh my god, there's still about 50 pages left! Yada yada, eventually, a few months later, and in a new chapter of their lives, the two reunite in Germany and decide to rekindle their connection. If the appeal of Evangelion to you is Asuka and Shinji's relationship, and mostly that, Volume 3 will probably be perfect for you. But for everyone else, it leaves a lot to be desired. The volume finally concludes with a return to the beach post-Third Impact. What I was waiting for this entire time. Lucky for me, it's in gorgeous, bold colors for maximum effect. It's certainly pretty, I'll give you that much. A young girl washes up on shore and examines her surroundings, only to discover Asuka and Shinji asleep against a piece of rubble, their hands on top of each other's. It's neat seeing another person emerge from the sea with their consciousness returned. A simple but effective way of showing that the world isn't doomed, that life will persevere, just like Asuka and Shinji's relationship will persevere. But at this point, it feels like too little too late. After 3 volumes intent on exploring what happens after the ending, we seem to have only moved, like a few feet away? What a bummer. In Evangelion, characters run away or self-sabotage to avoid confronting the painful possibility of being misunderstood, rejected, or hurting others. Shinji has the choice to become part of a hive mind, a seamless connection to every living thing where he can finally be understood. But he rejects it, choosing to live as himself in the devastating reality he brought about instead of running away. When Asuka reaches out to touch him, even as he's strangling her, it represents a willingness to push through the strife and attempt to connect regardless. Re-Take is essentially articulating the same thing as the movie's ending, but with extra steps. A lot of extra steps. Over 20 years later, Re-Take is considerably more fascinating as a cultural artifact of early 2000s fan culture than its intended purpose as a work of narrative closure. I imagine that one of Re-Take's biggest appeals at the time was that it reached industry quality in its presentation. But would Re-Take find such a large fandom today, nestled amongst these similarly competent doujins found in the halls of Comiket, all made with the wide range of art tools available now? I'm not so sure it would. I think its hentai origins alone are enough to prevent it from having the same kind of meteoric rise today. There's a deep irony in Re-Take's message, one that I think is much clearer now than it was when it first released. It's a story about taking responsibility, moving on, and refusing to continue living in an idealized past. Yet that's exactly what it is for the fans of Evangelion who couldn't let go. Even if it recognizes the weakness in that form of escapism, it jumps through hoops to narratively justify dedicating pages upon pages to depict a happier ending for Shinji and Asuka. Re-Take is wish fulfillment. Re-Take is stuck in its own idealized past. Despite its amazing art, that aspect of it makes it feel a bit pathetic overall. Would you be surprised if I said that they're still doing this? In 2017, Studio Kimagabuchi began a reboot of Re-Take. Up to 2023, they've continued to update their Re-Take collections. I wasn't going to get Freudian with it, but I don't know if there's a better way to demonstrate someone's development is stunted and they're stuck trying to relive their adolescence than an obsession with the intimate relationships of fictional school children they can't move on from. Even though the work itself doesn't commit to its messaging, I still see this doujin as a wake-up call to make new memories instead of only dwelling on the old ones. To me, it serves as a reminder that it's time to grow up, to stop living in the past, watching the same anime, obsessing over the same characters. Because if I don't, this is my future. And I'm scared of becoming the kind of person who loves Re-Take.